It's not often in chess you beat a player 400 points higher rated than yourself. But that's exactly what happened in this game. It was a classical game, so it's even less likely. It was an absolute roller coaster, and I find a beautiful way to simplify and win the game right at the very end. Hopefully you guys enjoy. There's a lot to learn here, and let's just jump into it. So, I was playing for my university team. This is a classical game, as I said. My opponent opens with d4, and I in fact knew what he was going to play. In fact, I knew exactly what he was going to play. I'm playing all theory so far. And here I thought he was going to go for a different way. This is the Joe Bava London. I thought he was going to go for knight b5, but he goes here. This is more of a different opening called the barrier attack. It's an old English classic. And the idea is basically White is going to squeeze me all game and try and say that his space advantage is better and his pieces are better placed than mine, but not if I have anything to say about it. I go knight to h5 thinking, okay, he's not my London player. If I can get this London bishop out of here, he's cooked. He's not going to know what to do. I'm going to be happy, but I missed something here. He slides his bishop in, and I'm thinking, okay, I just attack him twice. And now obviously the bishop's going to slide back, but no. He goes knight to e5, basically saying, okay, if you take my bishop, I'm going to take your knight, and I'm going to have nagging pressure on f7, and your pawn's going to be doubled, and your king's going to be open. And the engine seems to like this, but I didn't like this one bit. I was saying, God, I cannot allow this. I saw this move knight to e5, and I was a bit worried. And I was saying, okay, stay calm. Let's just drop the knight back. And after he goes his bishop back, now I can start my own play with knight to d to b7, getting another piece in the game, trying to trade off this relatively strong knight and get my bishop into the game. And also it reinforces my main idea of pushing c5 here. If I can't push the c-pawn, I've got absolutely nothing. So that's my only plan in this position. He goes h4, completely ruining my structure. I can't do anything about it really. So I just go c5, striking back, which is the best move. Captures, captures. And then my king is wide open. My king is basically living in a house where he's left all the windows and doors open, which obviously you don't really want to do because attackers might try and come in. This rook on the h-file can be deadly. But I had some plans here. I was thinking, well, his pieces can't really get into the attack too easily, so I should be safe for at least a little while. He goes queen to d2. I just continue bringing a piece into the game. Basically here I'm saying, okay, I'm going to hit your queen, I'm going to hit your bishop, I'm going to get one of these, and if you take, I'm happy. He takes, and now his center is sort of dissolving. And now I thought, after this pawn can't move, this e3 pawn is completely fixed. Now it's going to be very hard for him to trade off my dark square bishop, which is just such a key defender in this position. He continues naturally playing the best move, knight to g4, threatening this nasty check on h6. Again, I just can't do anything about. I go knight to f6, the check comes in, I have to give up my bishop, because if I go on the h-file, those discoveries just looked very nasty. This was all best moves, and I kick the rook out of there. He goes back to h2, and I can see, I think, okay, what's my plan here? Well, of course, I have to attack his king, and he's going to castle long, because he can't even castle short, so I go queen to b6, and now my idea is basically I'm going to push this h-pawn. Of course, he castles, bishop to e6, get my bishop on a nice diagonal. I'm not threatening to take this pawn. Let's give him a random move. If I take this pawn, of course, my bishop gets trapped. It does get very messy. I have things like a5, but I didn't really want to lose the piece and even get into a messy position because maybe I get the bishop, or maybe I end up losing it for a few pawns, but it's just not really what I wanted to go for here. And in this position, my opponent actually decides to play the move c4, which I thought was a bit weird, opening up his king, but it comes with a very concrete idea. The idea is basically just to push d5, push d6, and steamroll me in the center of the board, pushing all my pieces out of the way, and maybe even queening that pawn, which looks very unpleasant. So I take my chance to strike. I go queen to a6, trying to put a bit of pressure on this queen side. He just goes b3. I decide to check him, basically saying, okay, if he goes for the queen trade, I'm happy. I get a draw against a player 400 points higher than myself. Maybe it wouldn't be a draw, but I think I probably have better chances in endgame in this super messy middle game we have. I mean, white has been better for a lot of moves. I'll tell you when black is better, but for so on. But from this point onwards, white has an advantage of about +2, +3, and it only really gets worse from here on out. He goes king to b1. Now I go a5, desperately trying to get any sort of counterplay I can, but here it comes, d5. I've decided the bishop back. I was looking at moves like rook to d8, maybe with a cheeky pin before moving the bishop, but I thought eventually I'm going to have to move the bishop anyway, so might as well move it back. He decides to go bishop to e5, which I thought was a little bit weird. I was thinking, why are you pinning my knight? It's not really doing anything. My knight is sort of unemployed. But the fact is, this bishop is an absolute monster. This is why I want to trade it off. Look at it. It's defending his king and attacking mine, and also controls some more key squares, stopping me from getting my rook on b8, which I would have loved to do. So this was a great move by my opponent. I decided to go a4. After this, my opponent was visibly annoyed. Of course, classical games are played in person, and he was just shaking his head in his hands, thinking, why have I allowed this guy to get all this counterplay against me? Because if I start opening up this king, things could get a little bit dicey for my opponent. He decided to go bishop to b2, kicking my queen out. My queen has one square, so I moved to that square. Now it goes bishop to c3. I repeat. I'm thinking, okay, is he going to force a draw here? Because I'll allow it. If he wants to repeat moves and get a draw, that's perfectly fine with me. And now he goes b4. And I was shocked at this move. I was like, oh no, my queen is probably going to get trapped. Because if I decide to just grab this pawn, he's going to take with the bishop. My queen doesn't have any squares to go to that are safe. So this would be very bad. But then I spotted in all these variations, if he decides to shot the bishop back to attack my queen, I can just grab this pawn on b4. So I'm chilling. I just go b5 saying, okay, I'm going to open up your king even more. And now what do you have here? Really, you're not going to trap my queen. He instead decides to go rook to h1 saying, all right, your attack isn't really going anywhere now. I'm going to attack you. And this game now gets completely back and forth. I take on c4, opening up the center. He goes rook to h7 check. I had to calculate all of this. I just go back with the king, the safest place. And I believe here I actually offered my opponent a draw. My argument was, if my attack breaks through, A, it's going to be extremely complicated, and B, I'm going to have a lot of chances, and it's going to be very messy. And I was thinking his best option, if my attack starts to break through, is just going to be repeating checks with the rooks, which is similar to what we see in the game, but then he decides to take on f6, making sure my knight can't cover the square. Obviously, I couldn't take the rook here because it was pinned. Anyway, he tops the pin, and now I go e takes f6 of my only move, and now my king's actually safe. And the engine, in fact, said this is actually a draw. Indeed, White's best bet is to just keep checking me with these rooks, which he somehow starts to do. I go king c7. I was thinking he might repeat moves, but no, he goes in with the other rook. My king is forced up. There's lots of checks here, but I saw all this. I was thinking, there is no mate. I'm just going to keep running. King f5, check. King goes over, check. He goes again, checking me again. I take with the queen, and now I'm relatively safe. Yeah, he's going to grab a few pawns, but his king's no safer than mine, and this is about to kick off. He decides to trade the rooks, grabs a pawn, I check him, and now he goes into the a file, which actually might have been his undoing in this game, because as we can see, this king currently has no moves. If the king has no moves, you always got to look for ways to checkmate. I played a bit of a mistake here, queen to a3, but a very solid idea. I'm saying, oh, buddy, if you move your queen, you're getting mated right away, so I'm not sure how you're going to get too much counterplay, not being able to get this queen into the game. He decides to continue. He goes rook to f6, check, grabbing another pawn. My king just slides up, now almost completely safe. One more check and I'm out of there. And he goes queen to b2 check, trading the queens, basically saying, all right, Zach, I'm up a pawn. What are you going to do about it? So, of course, my queen is hanging. I have to exchange. Queen takes b2, king takes b2. And here I find a little move, queen king to c5 check. And I'm saying, I have a passed pawn here. Maybe I can get something going. He goes in, and now my position is completely lost. He's got, basically, the idea is, after my next move, he's just going to take on g5, grab this pawn, and march this down the board. Something crap. I've got to get something started quickly. I go a3, trying to get this pawn further up the board, and trying to sneak in and win his a pawn, which is basically what I do. He goes rook to a6, which is a complete mistake. He has a chance to win the game, but he misses it. Of course, he had to take this pawn and push this. Now he's wasting time, and I'm in. I'm in there. He taps my pawn, saying, okay, you don't have a passed pawn now, but I swoop over. I go rook to e3, and his king can't actually approach my rook because my pawn and rook control the squares. This is getting very interesting now. Now he takes on g5, but it's just too late. He has absolutely nothing. This pawn could go quick, but I'm quicker, and in this position, I spotted a very, very nice win. Calculated it all the way through. I have the nice move. Rook takes e3 check. Of course, my whole idea, after the king moves, I don't have nothing. I can, in fact, trade the rooks, and his king is just slower. He captures. My pawn is racing down the board. In this moment, my opponent resigned the game. He resigned because, although he can push his pawn, I keep pushing mine. And after I queen, he can queen as well, which looks relatively drawish. But there's one subtle detail that ends the game. I immediately have queen to b4 with checkmate with a brilliant win, and that's why my opponent resigned the game. So a completely wild back and forth game, which I managed to come on top. Of course, a win is a win. Hope you guys enjoyed that video, and don't forget to subscribe so I can get a haircut. Thank you for watching.